This is section 8.5, part 2 of adding and subtracting rational expressions. Okay. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to add and subtract polynomials. So they're going to be multiple term items rather than one term item. Okay, so the steps I've given you here. First thing you want to do is you want to factor out all the expressions that are in the denominator first. Okay, you have to be able to do this in order to find the common denominator. Okay, so once you've factored, then you're going to use every part in the denominator to form a common denominator. So once you have a common denominator, then you need to multiply each fraction to keep it balanced. And I'll go through examples again. It's very similar to monomials, okay? But this time we're not going to multiply everything together, because if we did that, we would have these crazy, huge denominators. Okay? Once you've found your common denominator and you have multiplied your fraction, then we got to state the domain. Okay, again, the domain, we take the denominator and we set it not equal to 0. Take each part of the denominator, set it not equal to 0. And then finally, step 4, once you have your common denominators, then you can combine your like terms in the numerator. Again, if it's subtraction, you have to distribute the negative just like before. Then you're going to combine, okay, while the denominator stays the same. Now, the one thing that's a little bit more extensive about these problems is that once you combine everything, then you're going to look to factor things to see if you can get things to cancel. Okay, so these problems are going to get kind of extensive, which is why these are separated into two parts. Okay, so let's take a look at the first example here. We want to simplify the following expression. We've got x over x minus 1 plus 2x minus 1 over x squared minus 3x plus 2. Okay? First step says to factor all the expressions in the denominator. So, this first fraction isn't going to change, because I can't factor anything out. First fraction doesn't change. Plus, if you look at the top, again, the top part's not going to change. The bottom right, I can factor that out. I need factors of 2 that add to negative 3, and that is negative 2 and negative 1. So this becomes x minus 2 and x minus 1. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to look at here is I'm going to identify the parts of the denominator. The parts of the denominator are an x minus 1, which is right here, and then I've got an x minus 2 and another x minus 1. Okay, now, because I have two parts that are the same, I don't need to have multiple things. So I'm going to go ahead and cross one of these out. This right here is going to be my common denominator. X minus 1 times x minus 2. Okay? So, as you look at this, if you look at this to be your common denominator, and you look at the right fraction, you don't need to change anything in the right fraction. It's the left fraction that you need to multiply something with. And if you look, it's missing an x minus 2 on the bottom. So if I do it on the bottom, I have to do it on the top. Okay? So now, once I've done that, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to distribute the x through here and here. So I've got x squared and minus 2x all over x minus 2, x minus 1, plus 2x minus 1 over x minus 2, x minus 1. Okay? Now, once I've done that, I've got common denominators now. Now I'm going to combine my like terms on the top. Okay? So when I combine them, negative 2x and positive 2x cancel out, and I'm just left with an x squared minus 1 in the numerator and an x minus 2, x minus 1 in the denominator. Okay? Now, again, the one thing I can't forget to do is my domain. In this case, my domain, x cannot be 2 and positive 1. Again, those two numbers will make the denominator 0. That part doesn't change. Okay? So, now I've got to look at the numerator and, okay, can I factor this numerator out? We've got a perfect square minus a perfect square. So we've got a difference of 2 squares. So that will become x squared minus 1 will become x plus 1 and x minus 1 all over x minus 2, x minus 1. And you'll notice we have two things that are the same. We're going to cross those out, and then my final answer becomes x plus 1 over x minus 2. So this is your answer. This is your domain. Okay, so that's the first problem. All right, now let's take a look down at problem number 2. Okay, this is a subtraction problem now. Okay, so we want to take, first thing we want to do is factor out the denominators. So I've got an x plus 2 on top. That doesn't factor. I can take out an x on the bottom, and I'm left with an x minus 2. Minus an x plus 2 on top. And I can take out a 2 on the bottom and be left with an x minus 2. So, the parts of the denominator are, I've got an x, I've got an x minus 2, and I've got a 2. I've got those three things. Those three things are the parts of the denominator. So when I multiply them all together, I've got a 2x times x minus 2. Again, this is going to be my common denominator. Okay, so that's what I want my common denominator to look like. Okay, so what I need to do now is I need my common denominator to be 2x and x minus 2. And what you need to figure out is from here to here what part's missing. So from here to here what part's missing, the 2 is. That's going to tell me what I'm going to multiply by. 2 and a 2. So now I've got a 2 times the quantity x plus 2 here. Over here I'm missing an x. So I'm going to multiply by an x, and I've got an x times an x plus 2 here. And then I got a minus sign. Okay. Now that I got common denominators, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to distribute. I've got a 2x plus 4 over 2x times x minus 2 minus an x squared plus 2x over a 2x times x minus 2. Okay. And now, because it's subtraction, I've got to distribute the negative here to the second term and the first term. Okay, so this now becomes 2x plus 4 minus x squared plus 2x all over 2x times x minus 2. Okay, when I simplify, combine my like terms up top, move this guy up here, it becomes negative x squared plus 4 over 2x times x minus 2. Again, my 2's, this is a positive 2, and, or sorry, this is a negative 2 right there because we distributed the negative and a positive 2. Okay? Now, again, I've got to look at this as in terms of trying to factor this out. You'll notice again, in the numerator, we have a negative up front. So I want to take that negative 1 out. And now I'm left with x squared minus 4 over a 2x times x minus 2. X squared minus 4 can be factored into x plus 2, x minus 2, all over 2x times x minus 2. And now you'll notice x minus 2's are going to cancel. And your final answer here is negative 1 times x plus 2 all over 2x. Now, the one thing that concerns me and with you guys is that you don't do your domain early, and this is one of the reasons I waited till the end on this. If I just did my domain down here, it would be 0. but I can't do the domain down here. I have to do the domain right here before I cancel things out. So my actual domain here is that 2x cannot be 0, and that x minus 2 cannot be 0. So actually here x cannot be 2, and here x cannot be 0. Okay? And that completes problem number 2. Now, this is part 1 of adding and subtracting rational expressions. Okay? Or sorry, part 2. Excuse me. This is part 2. Take a look. Make sure don't forget to look at part 3, which is the other 2 examples that are in your notes.